Greetings and welcome to Growth Hacking Secrets. I'm your host Mohammed Siddique from Atlanta, Georgia, and the co-author of New Success Secrets available on Amazon. On this episode, we have a special guest, Denny Krahe. Denny is the CEO of DizRuns.com, coach and podcast host. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Denny Krahe. Denny, welcome.
Thanks, Mohammed. Glad to be here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Danny, let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who you were surrounded with that inspired you to start DizRuns.com?
Oh, man. I kind of started it almost by accident. I was doing my own thing as a personal trainer, working in the health and fitness space, and just had a lot of free time. And I was listening to a bunch of podcasts. I kind of had started my own little podcast as well, separate from the one that I have now. And just had all this time during the day. So I was like, hey, I like running. I have this running blog that I don't do a whole lot with. Let me start seeing if I can interview runners and talk about running and kind of start a little running podcast, and didn't really plan on it becoming a thing. But over the course of a couple of years, I started picking up some coaching clients and kind of just started to just kind of grow organically. I kind of hate saying that because it's kind of a buzzword type of thing, but that's really what happened. And got to the point where I could stop doing the personal training and focus on the podcast, coaching, writing books, kind of the whole nine yards. And just, excited to see what the future might hold. But that's kind of how I got you. It happened by accident almost, as cliche as that might be. But it just kind of has worked out, and keep figuring it out one step at a time.
Tell us about your running, how much you run, which marathon or something, so they get to know you more.
Yeah, I started off as a kid, I wasn't a runner. I played other sports. Ice hockey was my favorite, but as a real young kid, I played whatever. But over the course of high school, college, I wasn't an athlete in college. I would run a little bit for fitness, but never really enjoyed it. And when I was in grad school, I was working with the track and cross country team at Middle Tennessee State University. And so just being around runners all day, I guess it kind of just rubbed off on me. I had nothing to do but watch people run on the track every day. So I would run on the track once in a while and started to enjoy it a little bit, and just kind of grew into it, over the course of a few years, and ended up, kind of signing up for my first marathon in 2010. I would hope to run a half marathon, but it was already sold out. But the full marathon was there, and I was naive. I didn't realize how much more difficult the full marathon is than the half marathon. So I said, well, shoot, I'll just do it. Whatever. I'll do it. It won't be that big of a deal. And it was a big deal. I was humbled that day on many fronts, and learned a lot of valuable lessons that have served me since then. But I did it. And that was, like I said, that was in January of 2010, and fast forward 11 years. And I've lost count of how many marathons, not because there's been so many, but just because there's been enough that it's not, 4 or 5, it's probably 15 or something like that. And a handful of ultra marathons. And of course, probably about the same number of half marathons and shorter races. And now it's just something that I do. I just love doing it. I'll run if there's no race coming. I'll run if there's a race. I'll run for, faster, slower, with people, without people. Obviously it's become more than just something that's a job. It's a passion. It's a joy. It's something that I really enjoy doing and talking about. And I can't get enough of it these days. It's kind of crazy to think 10 years ago I'd be saying this, but here I am.
Yeah, wonderful. They say life is a marathon, not a sprint. So how much is it true?
It's true. It's true. And that's one of those sayings, obviously, that I've said it before, and I do believe it, because it's there's so many ways that you can tie that in, and so many metaphors that it can that it can fit. But there's just, over the course of a marathon, over the course of 26.2 miles, there's ups and downs. There's times when it feels easy. There's times when it's really not easy, where it hurts, where you want to quit, where you don't want to do anymore. But if you keep going, more often than not, you come through it. And it sounds crazy to talk about until you've experienced, but then it gets easier again. You might really be struggling at mile 18, but if you push through and you get to mile 20 or 21, and not every time, but almost every time, it feels good again, and it stops hurting, and you kind of get that second wind. And there's so many times in life, obviously in everybody's individual situation, where things have been a struggle, but if you keep pushing through and you don't give up, it gets easier. You find a different way, or you do more than you ever thought you were able to achieve. And yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, there's a dozen other ways, but I mean, marathon, not a sprint. It is definitely true in running. The differences between the type of events, and I feel like it's true in life and business and entrepreneurship and all areas. It's an apt saying for sure.
Wonderful. So, Danny, what are the top 3 missteps to avoid to run marathon successfully?
Oh man, there's many. I think that one thing that I see often in the running community is, here's a kind of a little running cliche, but running someone else's race, like worrying about what other people are doing and following, like, oh, this person runs, 10 miles a day. I need to run 10 miles a day. Well, no, like that might work for that person. You don't know how long they've been running. You don't know what their history is. You don't know what else they do on their daily life. And so you try to cram 10 miles a day into your routine, and there's a pretty good chance you could get injured, you could get burned out and just not want to run anymore. So many things go wrong when you stop doing what you need to do and worry about trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? Trying to do what everybody else is doing. So there's one, trying to do too much too fast. Again, like marathon, not a sprint. Taking off and I'm going to sign up for this race and I'm going to try to run 10 miles a day or build up for the training too quickly, as far as go from 2 miles to 4 miles to 6 miles to 8 miles. And sometimes you need to ease into that a little bit more and go a little bit more gradually and allow your body to adapt and get used to the demands of running. But people, instant gratification is the world that we live in right now. And so people, it's easy to do. I mean, I do it, maybe not so much in running, but other areas of my life too, where it's like, I want it and I want it now. And that's just not how it works as far as running goes. And then maybe a third area where runners kind of get it wrong sometimes. And again, I'm as guilty of this as anybody. And it's another good parallel to other areas of life as well, I think, is expecting that every day can be your best day. It's just, by definition, best means it's exceptional. It's not the normal. It's not the average. Yet so many runners, and again, I mean, myself absolutely included, expect that every race we're going to perform the best we've ever performed before. Sometimes that happens, but sometimes, whether it's something that we did wrong, a fueling issue or a pacing issue or not being as well prepared, sometimes it's stuff that's out of our control. It's the weather is bad, or there's some issue that happened on the course or with other runners or whatever the case might be. You're just not going to always have your best day. And yet, time and again, when people have a performance that's not to the level that they expect on race day, it's like everything went wrong is the perception. But in reality, it's just like, hey, you didn't have your best day, but that's, that happens to literally everybody. Because like I said, best by definition is a big deal. So those are 3 areas: comparing with others, trying to do too much too quickly, and expecting that you're always going to be at your best, which is just not realistic on any of those fronts.
Yeah, that's true. It's like marathon is life and business and entrepreneurship, everything. This is true everywhere,
Oh yeah, it really is. I mean, like you said, that marathon, not a sprint. It's a very apt metaphor, and it translates from actual running to running a business to running a family to just living life. There's a lot of parallels that maybe I didn't realize as much when I first got started in running, but the more I've been into it, the more, and obviously being an entrepreneur as well, like you start to see all these parallels and all these lessons that I've learned in running that I'm learning in business and vice versa. There's a lot of overlap for sure.
Just curious how much you run every day, like in the days you run. So
I typically run 6 days a week. Sunday is usually my rest day. And I average, recently I've been averaging somewhere between 45 and 50 miles a week. So usually Monday through Friday, it's 5 to 6 miles, typically 6, but every once in a while, a little bit shorter, depending on if I oversleep a little bit and have to get back home in time to get my daughter ready for school and things of that nature. And then on Saturday, it's usually somewhere between 15 and 20. So it's somewhere 45, 47, typically. Every once in a while we hit 50. But that's where I'm at right now. But again, don't compare. That's where I am. That's what works for me. If you're listening and watching and thinking about getting into running, don't feel like you need to start with 1 mile, 2 miles, like whatever. And because again, if we rewind the clock back 11 years, I wasn't probably running 50 miles a month, let alone 50 miles a week. So it's been a slow build to get to this point.
Danny, I'm sure there is some successes or failure as you alluded earlier. So do you mind sharing your greatest failure in a marathon you have run, and
Sure.
what did you learn from that, and how did you recover from it?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I wish I didn't have too many to share, but I feel like I definitely have a couple of big ones. But I'll go with the biggest one, which was the first one. I kind of mentioned that first marathon that I signed up for. Didn't really know what I was getting myself into, and that related to the training, because when I was training for it, I had plenty of time. I signed up in August for a race that was in January, so I had almost 4 full months, which is the pretty typical type of duration of a training plan. Typically, about 16 weeks plus or minus is kind of the general guideline. Yet I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't research it, and I didn't talk to other runners. I just kind of figured I'd figure it out as I went. And so the week before the marathon, I did my longest run to date at that point, which was 14 miles. And you don't probably need to know a lot about running to recognize that running 14 miles is a whole lot different than running 26 miles. But I honestly, I thought that if I could do 14 miles to 26, that's more than half of the distance. No big deal. It'll be no struggle at all. And that was not the case. On race day, I managed to get to about mile 17. That extra 3 miles was probably just basically adrenaline and excitement from the race. But the last nine plus miles on race day were just miserable. Walking, I pretty much walked the whole last 9 miles. Everything was hurting. My knees were hurting, my shins, my ankles, just everything. I wanted that stupid race to be over so badly. Remember thinking a couple times, why did I do this? I'll never do this again. This was the dumbest idea I've ever had in my life. But fast forward to, obviously I finished. It wasn't pretty, but I made it across the finish line, and got my medal, and still thought it was stupid and I'd never do it again. But certainly learned some things from that. And obviously one of them would just be the value of preparation, of being adequately prepared for the challenge in front of you. And again, running or anything, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's a parallel no matter what, of knowing what you're getting yourself into. And if you don't know, maybe ask some questions, maybe ask for some help, talk to other folks that have been there, whether it's hiring a coach, working with a mentor, just reading books. I mean, I didn't read any books about running. I didn't talk to anybody. I had all these friends and people that I worked with. I mean, because this was a year after that I left the job at the college, at the university, where I was around runners and coaches every day. I could have called any of them and asked them some questions, and I didn't do that. So, being willing to ask questions, being willing to seek out information, because I mean, in 2021, there's information everywhere. There's information on YouTube and on books and podcasts and everywhere. Yet I didn't seek any of that out. But then, as the story continues, I learned some lessons that day. The next year I ran the marathon again. Actually didn't have much of a better day. I was injured more than I was, maybe overtrained, maybe had done a little bit too much and developed an injury. But between those two, was able to kind of figure some stuff out. Obviously started to read more, started to look into some research and learn kind of what the right way to train is and how to pace yourself. Thankfully, knock on wood, touch wood somewhere, haven't had a race anywhere near that difficult, that disastrous in the last 10 years. So so far, we're going to try to keep that streak going as long as possible, of maybe not always having my best race, but being well trained and being able to get to the finish line in a lot better shape than I was that first time.
Oh, that's a great lesson. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Denny, what are the top 3 success secrets of your life on this?
Yeah. Again, so many, but I'll try to keep it tight. 3 things that have really worked well for me. One is, and it kind of is almost the opposites, or at least in some ways the opposites of the 3 failures I mentioned earlier, is worrying more about me than what everybody else is doing. Of course, again, I'm trying to learn from other people all the time and trying to glean lessons and ways to improve myself, whether it's professionally, individually, as a family or whatever. But ultimately focusing on taking care of myself first. If I do that, then that helps to bleed into being a better husband and a better father and a better business owner, a better coach, a better runner, all of those things. So making sure to not always put myself last, not being selfish by putting myself first, but making sure I'm taking care of myself so I can take care of the other folks around me. So there's one, again, kind of like I just mentioned, always trying to learn things to which kind of goes into taking care of myself, but maybe that one's more of a physical aspect. And this one's more of the mental, intelligence, psychological and whatnot, but learning lessons, reading books, listening to podcasts, just always trying to learn things to help me be better in all areas of life. But always trying to take care of myself, always trying to learn. And then maybe the third thing is, and this one is another one that runners struggle with, but so it kind of fits the topics that we've been going through, but not being afraid to step back a little bit. You don't have to go hard all the time. Sometimes all the time. I mean, honestly, the ways that we grow and get stronger is through rest and recovery. And so recognizing that, you don't, that actually sometimes the best way forward is to not always press forward, but to stop, regroup. And again, you can take this out into all kinds of areas, but, catch your breath, look around, see what's going on, plot your next move. So being willing to take a step back once in a while has been really helpful for me, and maybe hopefully help me to avoid some mistakes by not just pressing on blindly, but stopping and looking around and going, oh, maybe this isn't the right choice because of XYZ, because I took the time to analyze it. Maybe I should have, trained a little bit for that first marathon. It would have been better. So those are three things that have helped me, taking care of myself physically, always trying to learn mentally, and then recognizing the value of rest and stopping once in a while before moving forward, instead of just always pressing forward.
Wonderful. I love the rest and recovery part, because that's why most of including me, I'm guilty of that too. When we keep going, we miss that part.
Mm-hmm. I don't want it to come across that that's easy for me, because it's not. I'm always trying to go forward, but it's again something I've learned that maybe once in a while it's good to have that rest day, or it's good to have that day where you just completely unplug from social media or from work emails or whatever, and just recover a little bit, and then the next day you feel better, you get more done. So it works out well in the end if you're able to do it, which again, not always good at, but it's something I try to aspire to.
Wonderful. Denny, how the growth hacking secrets community people who are watching this now can support you?
So everything that I have is basically the home base is dizruns.com, which is my website. I think we mentioned I have a podcast. I've been podcasting now for going on 7 years. It'll be 7 years in July. So Diz Runs Radio is the name of the podcast. If you're interested in running, if you're not interested in running, probably not something that you'd be very. You're welcome to check it out, but it's all running all the time. Whether I'm talking with runners on Mondays or doing some coaching and offering tips on Fridays, those are the days that the podcast comes out. So you can check that out on whatever podcast app of choice that you might have. And anything else, like I said, at dizruns.com, and dizruns on all the social medias. So you can find me on your social media app of choice, except for TikTok. We mentioned that before we got started, that I'm not on TikTok, but I'm pretty much everywhere else at dizruns, and happy to talk and chat. And if you're into running, I'll talk about running all day, every day. So find me and ask me your questions, and I'm happy to help out in any way I can.
Just curious, are you on Clubhouse yet?
I am on Clubhouse. I'm on there, but not on TikTok.
Not on TikTok. Okay. Let's join on Clubhouse and meet Siddique. That's my Clubhouse. I'm same ID everywhere. Okay.
Fantastic. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. As we are about to wrap up, Denny, I like to ask this question to almost every guest to get a kind of review and testimonial for the show. What would you say about your today's guest experience on a Growth Hacking Secret show?
I had a blast with it. I can talk about running stuff all day, and I do talk about running stuff all day, but it's really fun for me to be able to talk about my passion, but also talk about it in a business context and in a different angle. So, just the ability to blend passions and come at things from maybe some different angles is always enjoyable for me. And the questions are great questions, and things that, at least again for me, there's so many answers. So many great answers and so many great insights that I get just from answering the questions for myself. So I had an absolute blast, and I appreciate the time and the opportunity. And just thank you, Mohammed. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Really appreciate it. Denny, what would you say as a final word?
I think, for me, the final word is just, take the next step. That's a kind of a motto and a mantra that I have. It serves me well in running. It serves me well in business. Always trying to keep going forward, but being intelligent about going forward, taking that step back once in a while, planning out the next step, but then keep going. And hopefully typically it tends to work out in the end. It doesn't always seem like it in the middle stages. But if you keep going forward, you'll get through it. And so that's my final thought. Take the next step.
Take the next step, keep going, never give up. You will get what you want eventually at the end. Keep correcting yourself in the middle. Don't keep doing the same mistake over and over again. Keep going. Thank you so much, Denny Krahe, for sharing your wisdom with us today. On the behalf of Growth Hacking Secrets community and our entire team, we really appreciate you. This is Mohammed Siddique signing off from Atlanta, Georgia. Until the next episode, all good wishes.